glorious attorney. Glorious practice of law. We're resuming case 3. We are just going into the trial with no information whatsoever. We met the guy. He was like, "Oh, Faith and Begora, dude. I'm on murder trial." And we just walked into the door. We know from the title sequence, or the intro sequence, that it has something to do with Gamer Anthro. Hi. Has something to do with a murder inside of a horse-drawn carriage, perhaps? What in the world? 6 judges. So this is the highest court in Great Britain. The Old Bailey. The centuries of history in this place is palpable, isn't it? Aren't they? Aren't the centuries? It's so different to see. It's so funny because I feel like this is one of those things that maybe, this is localized into English, but I don't know if it's intentional or not that it's localized into British English. We don't say different to in America. We say different from. It's so different from the Supreme Court in Japan. He says different to. It's so different to the Supreme Court in Japan. It feels both imposing and serene at the same time. The atmosphere almost makes words redundant. Whatever the country, determining a person's guilt or innocence is always a solemn affair. Right? It's so noticeable. And I mean, either way gets the point across, I guess. Different. It's not like different to would mean the opposite of different from. They mean the same thing. May I say something, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, yes, what? Your eyes look ready to pop out of your head again. I know, but I just can't help it. Was that actual Dracula? We have actual Sherlock Holmes. So do we also have actual Dracula? My name is Drount Cacula. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are here today to determine the guilt or innocence of Mr. Magnus McGilded. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is fully prepared. What are we gonna do for this guy? Is he seriously gonna... Is he going to turn into a bat? Ghosts are real. That means bats are real, too. Bats are real in this universe. Confirmed. That must be the Reaper of the Bailey. He really does look fully prepared to dispatch his next poor victim to the underworld. Counsel for the defense, you appear to be Eastern. Do you speak English? Does he? He can't read English, right? Didn't we see like something he couldn't read because it was in English? Oh yes, of course. Sorry. But he asked if the defense was ready. And I couldn't be further from ready if I tried. Those eyes please me, Nipponese. Is that a slur? They shroud your fear, your doubt, your trepidation. They run wild, clinging to some phantom notion of courage. The quintessential look of a sacrificial lamb. Ugh, a cold shiver just ran down my spine, all the way to the tips of my toes. It's like Sesame Street all over again. Terrifying. Now, Mr. McGilded. Yes, my lord. You stand accused of murder, a capital offense. You could be sent to the gallows if found guilty. Are you quite sure you wish to entrust your defense to this foreigner? As I've always said, my lord, 'tis a grand thing to give opportunities to the young. Even if the fellow's a student from some little island off the coast of Cali, is it not the Californian way to ignore the dangers of yourself and give those less fortunate a fair chance? I like to think that acts of chivalry do the great British Empire proud.
What a fine gentleman of London did you carry down over 5,000 pounds to the government the other day? Mother, please, there you go,
It seems as though everyone in the public gallery is firmly behind Mr. McGilded. That's definitely welcome news, and he certainly has a way with words. I'm surprised he couldn't convince anyone to defend him.
Eloquently put, Mr. McGilded, and most laudable sentiments. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm sure I need hardly remind you that you 6 members of the public have been selected for your impartiality and and your knife play? Are you allowed to bring a knife into jury duty? And I've been skipping out on jury duty all this time. I could have been playing with a knife there. Man, do I gotta do 6 voices? No, I'm not gonna do it. Yes, my lord. If the task is to send rotters to the gallows where they belong, I'm more than ready.
At the manor, his lordship always says we should dispose of rubbish promptly. Naturally, I agree.
Oh, any criminals here will be soon wishing they never set eyes on me.
More things that are probably not allowed on jury duty.
Feel chill.
Oh, don't mind me, my dears. I'll just be getting on with my knitting. I must finish these mitts for my grandson. Ah, Mr. Naruhodo, those people are... The jury, yes. That's something we don't have in Japan yet. That's right, I've only ever read about it. But here in Great Britain, the court's final verdict depends on the opinions of these 6 jurors. The judge passes sentence according to the law, but the jurors determine guilt based on common sense. So the defendant is ultimately judged from 2 completely different points of view. But how exactly do the jurors give their verdict? That I don't know, but I'm sure it will become clear as the trial progresses. I swear, I could have sworn we spent a whole month studying law, and we didn't find anything out? Yes.
Prosecutor Van Zieks. My lord. It's been a number of years since we've seen you here in the courtroom. I thought you'd renounced your fame. I'm known as the Reaper of the Bailey, my lord. Infamy rather than fame, I would say.
Faded. Good to see you. No, they were adamant that they studied English law on the way over, on the boat ride over.
But yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years have passed since I last spread my wings in this capacity. So what brings you back? Is there some change of circumstance of which the court should be aware? I leave that to your imagination, my lord.
So the Reaper has been out of action for 5 years. Why wasn't the prosecutor vampire in the previous 6 games is what you should be asking, except that one was in Ace Attorney. Which one had Van Karma as the final boss? Was that 3? That was 3. 3 had Van Karma, who was clearly a vampire. Come on. What happened between streams? I don't know. We finished a case and started another one. Not between streams though. No, not Miles. Miles was not a vampire. He does have a cravat, but he's not a vampire. Von Karma, though, Von Karma was a vampire. And so is this guy. This guy's a double vampire. No rules. Why did he have to choose today of all days to make a comeback? Don't lose heart, Mr. Naruhodo.
As you wish, sir. The court nevertheless welcomes your return. Now then, opening statements, I think. A summary of the case, if you please. Certainly, my lord. As your lordship is aware, this is a case of overwhelming simplicity.
We must be the only ones in here who aren't aware.
The incident took place in the late evening, 3 days past. The hour was some minutes before 10.
Ever finally is here at the start of the stream. We have a vampire. His name is Trevor.
The victim was a maker of building bricks known in the community as Thrice-Fired Mason.
Sorry? Thrice?
It means the number 3!
Oh my god. Just unsub, everybody. Really, don't watch my stream, don't follow me, don't sub. Although if you do sub, you now get 5 emotes instead of 1, because I didn't realize that I had 5 emote slots for like, probably for a while. That is from some show? Man, you gotta get out in the world, Ever. That's from Sesame Street. Sesame Street's worldwide, isn't it? Of course it is.
He was a very accomplished craftsman. The bricks he fired were said to be almost indestructible.
Sesame Street is older than I am. Anything older than I am is extremely old. When did it... I'll check real quick. I'm gonna guess 66. Was I even close? Original network run on PBS 1969. I was pretty close. Okay, old, right, for people to... Yes! Was it Muppet? That is weird. Like, I mean, it's such an ubiquitous part of American culture that even though I don't know if I ever watched Sesame Street. I must have, I guess. You couldn't have not watched it. And right, yeah, sorry. The Muppets. Wait. But, like, the Muppets were on Sesame Street, right? Oh, no, okay. The Muppets was a brand name where... Were they not the Muppets on Sesame Street? I guess they weren't.
Anyway, the victim's corpse was discovered in an omnibus.
Omnibus or omnibus? I didn't think an omnibus was something that you could go inside of. I thought it was a collection of written works.
In service on the streets of London at the time, a dagger that had been thrust into the victim's abdomen is believed to be the ultimate cause of death. Here is the autopsy report from the investigating medical officer at Scotland Yard.
Thank you, counsel. I shall accept that and the photograph as evidence. Autopsy report. It gives the cause of death as internal hemorrhaging as a result of a single stab wound to the abdomen. Is that true? Photograph taken on the omnibus. The knife in his abdomen is clearly visible, but his face is partly obscured from view by an old crooked hat. So, the person in this picture might not even be the dead guy. No, it's him. That's partially obscured, like 3%. 3% obscured. 3.05%. Anyone on The Muppet Show was a Muppet, and they occasionally appeared on Sesame Street, but the Sesame regulars did not appear anywhere else, so they weren't Muppets. So, like, Kermit would show up on Sesame Street, but Big Bird never showed up on The Muppets. Like that. Thrice percent obscured.
And one further item of evidence. The prosecution wishes to submit these as well. And these are... Good Lord! Is that blood, counsel? Yes, my lord, seized by a policeman who arrived at the scene. These gore-soaked gloves were taken from the hands of the accused when he was arrested.
What? Mr. McGilded's gloves had blood on them? Perhaps he was just flipping a pocket knife, flicking a flick knife as you do, and cut his own hand.
Yes, I will accept these as evidence as well.
The defendant's leather gloves have been entered. Oh, bloodstain on the right glove. That matters. It matters which hand. How did I get into this? I'm backed into a corner before I've even started. Bus is a shortening of omnibus? Huh. Curious. Just like gun is a shortening of... Don't tell me. Gunhilder? Final answer.
Continuing. According to the driver of the omnibus, there were only 2 passengers traveling.
How many numbers is he gonna have in his opening statement? Every single number. I'm like,
2! 1, 2 passengers traveling inside this vehicle at the time.
only 2?
Obviously, one of those passengers was the deceased brickmaker, Mr. Mason. The other...
Oh, he gave me the slow point. Oh, he's an expert.
Was the accused, Magnus McGilded. Well, rather damning circumstances, to say the least. Defendant, what say you?
Well, of course, I have no recollection of such a thing.
Mr. McGilded!
To be sure, I rode the omnibus that evening, but when I'm in a carriage, I'm taken with a fierce tiredness. I always succumb to it.
Are you claiming to have been asleep?
'Tis the motion of the carriage, my lord Lilton, so it is. And when I opened my eyes again... it was a desperate sight before me, the body of a man I'd never laid eyes on before in my life.
You choose to believe it's Gunzuka. Reasonable. Agree to disagree. Omnibus is Latin. It was a big carriage for transporting people. So they were called omnibuses, and now we just say bus. We're in a hurry. Got no time. No time for 3 syllables.
Now I ask you, what good-hearted soul wouldn't rush to help a fellow bleeding from his stomach? I wasn't about to start worrying about my gloves now, was I? I reached out to give the man a hand.
So the blood got onto the gloves then, after the man had been killed.
Unfortunately...
Even more, from Wiki. We can always take a time out for lexicographical clarifications. Bus is a clipped form of the Latin adjectival form, omnibus, meaning for all, which I should have known, I think. The dative plural of omnis, omni, all. The theoretical full name is in voiture, omnibus, vehicle for all. Wow. Never knew. I never knew that. So wait, what about a paperback omnibus? Do those exist? Did I make that up? Did Japan make that up? Because I'm pretty sure they call them omnibuses.
Unfortunately, that statement of the drivers is only the beginning.
What? That's not all of it?
There were multiple witnesses. Let's count them. To this precise moment at which the brickmaker was fatally stabbed.
Ordar. Ordar? Okay. Ordar, apparently.
When the killing took place, only the victim and the accused were inside the carriage, and there were witnesses to the crime. This is not just a case of compelling evidence.
Slow point! He winds up, it's almost like, you know, you're watching not John Woo. Who does the speed up, slow down stuff a lot? Michael Bay? Somebody does it. That's where he went to film school, to law film school.
It's the nail in the coffin for the accused.
Thank you, counsel. The circumstances of the crime have been made quite clear. I think we will hear testimony from these witnesses first of all.
Your wish is my command.
Oh!
Bailiff, bring the witnesses in at once.
The only way I know this Dracula voice is because in Family Guy he has an appearance. You only know of the Count from Family Guy? That's so weird. I mean, I guess that's how it is with other things, too. What do people watch over in Britain? Frickin' Jammy Twins? Frickin' Banana Sundays? They got a bunch of things over there I never heard of.
Witnesses, your names and occupations.
My name is, well, everyone calls me Beppo. I drive an omnibus in the East End.
Bruce Fairplay. I'm a banker in the city. That's not my real name.
My name's First.
Lady First? What? Lady First? What? Is this because every Detect-em-up game has to have a secret gender switch? Is this actually a lady dressed up as a guy? Is that the twist? They decided to put it right in their name.
Lady First. I make hats for gents.
Or is it like ladies first, like you're being chivalrous?
Let's begin by confirming the facts.
I know, you're in Transylvania. That's why you like this accent so much.
1, 2, 3 days ago. At a short time after 10 o'clock in the evening, all of you present in the stand were in an omnibus and witnessed to the aforementioned incident. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Why is he the only cold one? Being sensitive to the cold doesn't condense your breath. Everybody should be breathing mist. This is impossible. Am I gonna have to, like, My Cousin Vinny, laws of physics this bitch? Quite right.
Yes, sir. That's right, sir.
Very well, then. Let's proceed to your formal testimonies, please. They didn't air the Count segments because it was culturally offensive. That would be really funny. Also, he's not from Transylvania, he's from Slovenia, which is right nearby. Or one of them is inside the other. Or one of them is the capital of the other. I don't know. Slovakia? Slovenia? One of those is for sure the answer. Each of you will tell the court precisely what you saw. What the witnesses saw.
It was the last bus of the evening, so I had few customers. I remember it well.
The victim and the man accused of killing him were sat next to each other inside the bus. See, there's another one. Were sat. That's a bit of a Britishism. We wouldn't say were sat. We're sat next to each other. Sounds a little strange. Then out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife right into his guts. You would think, or is that the joke, that if you made hats for a living, that you could make a hat that fit your own head? I see now. That's right, he stabbed him. I screamed, I did. Couldn't help it. As soon as I heard the scream, I stopped my bus. And then I saw it too. Why are we hearing from all the witnesses at once? Vampire, no rules. Unambiguous testimony, I must say.
Exactly, my lord. These men witnessed the incident in the omnibus with their own eyes. 6 eyes.
I'd like to ask a question, if I may.
Yes, counsel?
Well, this testimony makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever.
Why not?
Well, the incident took place inside a moving carriage, didn't it?
As has been clearly stated from the outset, yes.
Where is Serp? I don't know, I haven't seen Serp in a little while. Well, in that case, how could those two witnesses possibly have seen what happened? There's no way they could have seen the inside of the moving carriage. Are we gonna count the dots?
No. How quaint. I read that civilization in the Easter Island nations was a good century behind our own. But you're here in London yourself. Are you really so ignorant about our omnibuses?
Huh?
Tell me, my Nipponese friend, have you even traveled in an omnibus?
Well, no. We only arrived in London this morning.
No matter. I've arranged for us all to see for ourselves the actual scene of the crime, that is.
What do you mean? The actual scene? How?
A carriage is designed to be moved, after all. Presumably you understand that much.
Yes.
The omnibus in which this bloody crime took place is here today, in this very building.
Here? What? The entire carriage?
Bailiff! Bring forth the stricken omnibus.
So that's... I should know it right off the top of my head. The D&D thing. The funny D&D thing. Gazebo. the D&D story where they encounter the DM describes there being a gazebo there, and one of the players doesn't know what that is and assumes that it's a thing that you have to eat. Everybody got it immediately. If they brought in the omnibus and it was like a yak or something. He's like, no, I thought you knew. Like, in London we ride yaks, we call them omnibuses. I can't believe they could bring something so enormous in here. Great Britain's courtrooms are amazing.
As you can see, the omnibus is pulled by 2 horses and can carry up to 8 passengers. 4.
Are they doing it on purpose? Did they go, we need to make a Phoenix Wright case with the most numbers possible. At least one number per sentence on average, and then we will put Sesame Street's The Count as the prosecutor.
4 passengers seated inside in the enclosed cabin and another 4 on the rooftop deck above. Every Londoner knows
The best views of the city's architecture and sights are to be had from the top of an omnibus. Nowadays, they have those double-decker buses. We don't have those, though. And I should point out to our foreign guests that there is a... What? Man, that's weird. There is a skylight in the roof, allowing a view of the interior from the seats below. Seats above. View of the okay, I see. Ah, a skylight. Oh! The penny drops at last, I see. These two gentlemen were occupying the rooftop seats on this omnibus when the murder took place. That is how they came to witness the grim incident. Through the skylight. Yeah, like, you're inside the carriage and you're like, let's look up. There's nothing you could possibly see straight up other than the passengers or just a blank. There's the sky. There is cloud number 1, gray cloud. Or it's raining. Ugh, that makes perfect sense, except for the design of the omnibus and everything else. Well, Counsel, this is a first. In all my years behind the bench, I've never experienced the crime scene itself being brought into the courtroom. There are a number of important clues remaining inside the carriage, my lord. I would like to suck your blood. I would like to submit the omnibus itself as evidence. That is the prosecution's wish. Very well. I see no reason why not. This omnibus is hereby formally accepted as evidence. I can't believe it. The entire crime scene entered as evidence? Yes, Great Britain is simply extraordinary. I could help myself a lot by giving that omnibus a thorough examination, seeing as it's here. Let us continue with proceedings, then. Your cross-examination, Counsel. Pray, don't expect this Nipponese stray to understand the intricacies of a British court's cross-examination rights. All right, my first cross-examination in a British court. Focus, Ryunosuke, focus! Okay, so let me look at the carriage, because they let me do that. Yeah, we walked into court not even knowing anything other than the defendant's name and the fact that it was a murder case. Nothing else. Let's open the door and go inside. Ugh, the scene of a murder. It's horrible. Just kidding, it's awesome. Look at how great this is. That's blood that's soaked into the seat. The victim's, obviously. Yes, and that seat would be clearly visible from the roof deck. Would you really stab someone in full view of the other passengers like that, I wonder? Well, it was after dark. And there was a lamp on in here, so perhaps the culprit couldn't see anything outside through the skylight. Whichever way you look at it, it doesn't seem like it was a planned attack. Ah, that's a poster for the Great Exhibition that's due to start 6 months from now. There's a lot of focus being drawn to the Crystal Tower, the centerpiece of the whole exposition. Ooh, the Crystal Tower. It's under construction already, I believe. People all over London must be fizzing with excitement. Is that what they do? At the prospect of such a grand event. Oh, it's gonna take me out. I didn't want to go out. Darn. Fizz all the time. Of course, the X in EverX stands for fizzing. Ever fizzing. Deep Twitch lore. Oh, this is different poster, same stuff. Seat has a handle. This looks like all sorts of equipment that might be needed to keep the omnibus running. Feeding tubs? Oh, for the horses. Okay. I'm like, too late! The omnibus catches you and eats you. Feeding tubs, tools to repair wheels, blankets, horseshoeing tools. So it's a storage compartment for the coachman to keep his things, it seems. There doesn't seem to be any space for passengers to stow their luggage, that's for sure. Well, I don't imagine it would be very convenient for that purpose anyway. Can we look up to the skylight? Quite a large skylight, isn't it? Yes, quite large enough to afford a good view into the cabin from the roof deck. And there doesn't appear to be a handle or catch of any description, so I suppose it can't be opened from inside the cabin at least. Floor? Nothing on the floor. Wait, why is it called the Phoenix Wright Omnibus? That doesn't make sense. So this is the roof deck of the omnibus. Oh, you must have a wonderful view of London's streets from up here. So people sit all the way up here on bitter winter nights with the cold air rushing past them? And they have to pay money to do so? Brr, I can't imagine how cold it must feel. That just made me think of something horrible. Can you imagine being dragged around the city in the freezing cold as a punishment? Perhaps that is a real price you pay to stay out late. Nothing here at the front. Lamps. Go to bed early, otherwise you'll be dragged around the streets of London in the cold. Okay. This is definitely blood, isn't it? Not the most pleasant sight to be confronted with on our first day in London. Well, nothing will come of grumbling now. No. By the way, is Mr. McGilded right-handed? Yes, I believe so. He was toying with a coin in his right hand a little earlier. Ah, pity. If only he'd been left-handed. I think blood on either glove would be fairly incriminating, really. True. True and real. Inside the gloves? No. Alright, nothing. Alright, let's cross-examine.
Hold it!
Hold it! Yes, I think it was sometime after 10, wasn't it? Oh, yes, sir, that's right. Yes, ever so cold it was, sir. Freezing, in fact. And you had 4 passengers on board at the time, is that correct? Yes, that's right, sir. Not all traveling in the same parts of the bus, of course, though, no. And there were no other passengers when the incident took place. No one alighted, for example. You're quite right with that, sir. No other passengers like that, no, none. So nobody fled the scene of the crime, then. I have to say, the boss insists on it running, he does, every evening, that last bus of the day. But I do wonder sometimes if it's altogether worthwhile. Yes, sorry to say. What do you mean by that? Well, what with it being so cold and everything, and only making 20 pence on the run, you see. Yes, I spent that much at the pub on my way home, just trying to warm up again. The victim and the man accused of killing him were sat next to each other inside the bus.
Hold it!
And you saw them through the skylight in the roof of the carriage? That's right. When you stood up on the top deck, the window's right there at your feet. There was a lamp on inside, so I had a pretty good view. The two of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out their faces. But there's not a shred of doubt in my mind that it was Mr. McGilded. How can you be so sure? Well, how can I put it politely? Miss McGilded is a gentleman of rather small stature. I couldn't have mistaken him for anyone else, other than someone else of the same height. Let's not forget that when the vehicle came to a halt, the only people inside the enclosed cabin were the deceased Mr. Mason and Mr. McGilded. There is no room for doubt here. Ugh, I really wish there was. Then out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife into his guts. Hold it! You actually saw the exact moment it happened? Didn't I already testify to that? Or are fair dinkum, hard-working city bankers not considered trustworthy these days? Oh, no, I didn't mean that. This is no good. I've really got his back up? What? Perhaps you could just tell us what you saw in a little more detail if that... My lord! Or no. Jury number 3? What's the meaning of this? Are jurors allowed to interject? My mind's made up, me lord. Completely and utterly made up. Made up about what? I don't like the stinking rich, never have. They're always up to something or other that they shouldn't be, every one of them. And that little leprechaun of a man is no exception. He can't fool me. No point in wasting time listening to any more of this. That's my opinion on the matter anyway. That is precisely what I was about to say. As the foreman of the jury, it's my duty to set a good example to my fellow jurors. No, he only hates bankers. He got that money from selling NFTs, which is not at all the same thing. What is happening here? Ghosts? Oh, it was in the book. It was in the British law book that you bang on the table in order to put your magic into the fire law justice scales. Let me see. Ah, yes, it seems that's how the members of the jury give their verdicts. Through magic. With fire? Apparently, yes. White for innocent and black for guilty. As the 6 members of the jury make up their minds about the case, one by one they each cast a ball of fire into the great scales of justice, as we saw a moment ago. So if those enormous scales fall completely to the black side under the weight of all that fire, just heavy with fire. Oh, why can't I lift all this fire? It's so heavy. I guess that means you're guilty. Oops. Let's do our very best to make sure that doesn't happen. Now I'm even more worried than I was before. Very well. The court acknowledges the change in the jury's stance. Oops. Counsel for the defense, please continue with your cross-examination. This is a nightmare. Have you ever tried to lift a campfire before? But you can't. I'll have you know I do 30 campfire reps before bed every night. That's why I'm so swole. Hold it! He stabbed him, you say, and you were sitting up on the roof deck, were you? Yes, that's right, sir. I was up on the roof seats. I remember seeing the little gent sitting next to the fellow that was stabbed. I've been thinking about a new hat design, you see, so I was just gazing absent-mindedly around. But then I happened to look down through the skylight. It was sticking right out from his belly, that huge great knife.
A grim sight indeed.
That didn't help me at all. The jury looked like they're even more convinced my client did it than they were before. That appears to have made everyone even more dubious that Mr. McGilded is telling the truth. If only we had some evidence to counter their suspicions. I already made that joke. But yeah, it is kind of silly. It's like, maybe that's his specialty, is like, it's kind of like the Real Fake Doors commercial from Rick and Morty. He's like, come get your ill-fitting hats. Hats that won't stay on your head. They slide to the left, they slide to the forward.
Mr. First,
Oh, yes, sir.
is this the knife you saw?
Oh, good grief. Yes, that's it. The very one, sir. Is that?
Yes, Counsel, this is the blade that was driven into the victim's belly like a stake through the heart.
That is a blade of considerable size, Counsel.
It is, and furthermore, this scabbard is emblazoned prominently with a certain initial. The letter M, which I'm not familiar with. I only do numbers on Sesame Street.
Please, no.
M for Magnus or McGilded, possibly. Take your pick. It seems this particular big name in London made a magnificent mistake.
But there are M's everywhere. Like, yes, like in Mason.
Objection!
Wow, he's got a fancy objection. Okay.
This blade is far too extravagant for a poor brickmaker to have owned. No, this weapon of murder almost certainly belongs to the accused.
Ugh. Not conclusive, but certainly compelling, Counsel. My lord, if you'll forgive the interruption, I have some fireballs to throw. Oh. Mr. McGilded is a pillar of society and a gentleman's words should be sacrosanct. That's the sort of thing that you want a juror on a murder trial to say. Seems like a nice guy. Oh, however, those of us in service know we must accept hard truths. Wait, what are you about to do? Dispose of the rubbish, but it's Monday. You don't do burnable garbage on Monday. No. I don't wish to cause offense, but I do like to eradicate all traces of filth and grime. I have painstakingly typed every word uttered here today and cross-referenced the facts. You don't need to do the first part of that, because we have someone who does that. It's the clerk. And you're not allowed to do the second part, because you're just not. Only lawyers can bring new stuff in. As such, I am now in a position to draw the only logical conclusion. Man, at this rate, I'm going to have to use the knife and stab my eye out and put it in the other fire. Not again. That's 4 out of 6 jury members who've proposed a guilty verdict. There are only 2 left. We've had it. Every time I press these witnesses for more information, I just make the situation worse. Like, Phoenix Wright style, gameplay, these were necessary. Like, these cutscenes needed to happen, so this is likely to be something where you just need to press everyone in order to move on. There's actually nothing to object to here in this testimony. And I think we're at the end of it anyway. Nevertheless, what we need more than anything at the moment is more information. We're still very much in the dark. I suppose I'll just have to keep pressing the witnesses. More sparks may well fly. We mustn't give up hope that we'll uncover something that will give us a way to fight back. But... alright. I'll keep trying. I can't give up. I just need to keep calm and listen to the witnesses' statements again.
Hold it!
What exactly did you see? Oh, well, sir, that would be the passenger, sir. Yes, collapsed on the floor he was. What?
And by the passenger, obviously you are referring to the victim, Mr. Mason, the brickmaker.
And then the other passenger had that knife in his hand, like this.
By the other passenger, obviously you are referring to the accused, Mr. Magnus McGilded.
And then he plunged it down like this, stabbing the other passenger in the belly. What?
My lord, I wish to speak.
Yes, juror number 5, I take it that you too?
As a master of the London Guild of Coachmen, the idea of a murder being committed in one of the city carriages is utterly abhorrent to me. It wouldn't be right to make a decision before hearing all the facts, though, I said to myself. But I've heard enough now. The horse has bolted, as they say.
No, please. Keep an open mind a little. Gee up now, Silver Blaze. The finish is in sight.
I'm suddenly a cowboy.
Beppo is a long-standing member of the guild, and I trust what the man says.
Oh, thank you, sir. You're too kind, sir.
Ugh. This is too unkind, sir.
Which now means that five jurors agree to condemn this man.
I assume they can change their minds. And yeah, obviously, it's not a real jury. Like a real trial by jury, you would, I know this. Voir dire? I think it's called voir diring the witnesses to determine whether or not they are acceptable to be on the jury.
Madame Juror number 6.
Yes, dear. What can I do for you?
You have heard the testimonies of the witnesses in the stand.
Oh, yes, I certainly have. Still got my hearing, you know.
Then pray tell, why are you yet to pronounce your leaning?
Well, dear, the thing is, I'm a creature of habit, me. I always go to the park at around this time of day and sit on a nice bench and get on with my knitting. There's a lovely little park just near where I live. McGilded Park, it's called. The gentleman donated it to the city, you know, to put a smile on Londoners' faces, he said. I can't imagine such a fine young gentleman would have it in him to take another man's life. He is always doing wonderful things for the city. That's right, a man like that wouldn't stab someone, surely. Mother, may we please go to the we can borrow some books?
How many Londoners must I count? How many Londoners live with their heads in the clouds? Do you people not know? What kind of a man Magnus McGilded really is?
Objection, irrelevant. What kind of a man is he?
The philanthropist.
Philanthropist.
Magnus McGilded has enough wealth to purchase the entire city he claims to value so highly. But where did all that wealth come from? Your client is a Shylock, sir, and one with the very darkest of souls. You might say that he is the Dark Souls of London.
What? Stone the crows, don't do that. They'll die.
McGilded lends money at extortionate rates of interest, so his victims have no hope of repaying him. When they default, he takes possession of everything they own. He is a vulture that preys on the weak.
I've never heard any mention of that before. How dare he have money? How dare he offer people loans that they agree to?
Your faculties haven't deserted you, I'm sure, madame. So, has this thought not crossed your mind?
We are a terrible lawyer. We're just letting him sit here and say this.
Would a man wealthy enough to buy London in its entirety not have a carriage of his own?
What?
What possible reason could this man have had to make use of a public omnibus service?
Knitting faster. If she finishes that knitting, we're done for. You're not saying that...
The victim, a poor brickmaker, had nothing to his name save considerable financial liability. It will come as no surprise that his creditor was the accused, Magnus McGilded. But let it also be known that the very day Mr. Mason was killed was the final repayment date for his debts.
Good gracious!
The brickmaker was destitute. He had lost his house. He had not a shilling with which to repay his debts. In the end, this pitiful soul had the very last thing he owned taken from him and
profited from in what way exactly? Like, you don't make money off of killing somebody.
By the merciless philanthropist pretender, Magnus McGilded.
I don't believe it. If I might add something briefly, Miss Susato. You claim that the victim had been lent money by Mr. McGilded, but where is the evidence to support your claim?
Ba-da-ba-da-ba, ba-da. Forgive the discourtesy of filling my hollowed chalice in a court of law. Oh, there it is. There it is, Lord Van Zeek's hollowed chalice.
How can this be considered acceptable?
But I find myself in unexpectedly good humor. I had heard ladies of the Far East could show great courage, but I didn't expect to experience it myself.
Ah! As judicial assistant to the defense, I'm simply doing my job, and his, and doing a better job than he is.
What a pity that your display of courage is in vain. This is the debtor's ledger. That details all monies loaned by the accused. You will find the victim's name clearly recorded inside.
Oh.
Allow me to present this ledger as evidence. And pray forgive the discourtesy of raising my chalice in a toast to the enigmatic East at the same time. A marvelous toast, Counsel. I will gladly accept this new evidence.
The catalog of people who had borrowed money from the defendant at a high rate of interest. It includes the victim who owed 20 guineas.
That's a lot of guineas. Ah, yes, 20 guineas. The victim owed a considerable sum, and the accused made quite certain he had ample recompense.
Well, it would seem I've had the wool pulled over my eyes.
Regrettably, madame, that is the modus operandi of the accused.
It's such a pretty little park, too. What a scoundrel. And still, maybe it's all for the best. Wait a minute, let's think about this a little more before. I don't stand for nonsense. Oh, well. It's Serp! Hello, Serp. We have missed you. That was it. The last juror's decision. According to this Encyclopedia of British Law, When all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. That's what it says here. The final verdict. It's over then. Oh. There's a footnote, though. A footnote? However, the defense... All 6 members of the jury are now in agreement in this case.
Allow me to convey my respect for your swift and righteous decision. According to the laws of this country, I will now conclude the trial by delivering my final verdict. I trust there are no objections.
He doesn't know. He has no idea. Mr. Sato, just tell me one thing. Oh, yes? You were in the middle of saying something before. The footnote in your Encyclopedia of British Law. However, the defense... What did it say next? Oh, yes, of course. It says frickin' object, idiot. One moment. When all members of the jury have concluded... You already read that part! Skip ahead! Skip ahead a bit, Brother Maynard. Then the footnote says, however, the defense has the right to demand a summation examination of the jurors at this point. A summation examination?
Objection! A summation examination? From which century has that tome you have there been resurrected? Judging from the binding, I would say that book is at least 50 years old. Any modern text on British law wouldn't even give such an antiquated procedure I mention. It's a relic, long forgotten and certainly no longer practiced. So you are out of luck.
Oh. What even is it, Mr. Sato? This so-called summation examination. Oh, one moment, and I'll read about it.
You would demand the right to a procedure before you even understand what it entails?
Well, that's what happens when I push the A button, so yes.
Typical Nipponese.
All right, Mr. Naruhodo, I think I understand. It seems that under this procedure, we would be able to appeal to the members of the jury. To do what, exactly? Appeal to them to change their leaning and reverse their decisions. And it says here that, if successful, the proceedings of the trial must be resumed. Make them reverse their decisions?
Yes, in times gone by, barristers would use a summation examination to attempt to influence the jury's decision. But that procedure became something of a formality, with no practical benefit, really, so it rather fell out of use.
I wonder why.
Because it was devoid of purpose. Changing just one member of the jury's mind would be hard enough, let alone several. No self-respecting defense barrister would even assert his right to try in this day and age.
Still, I don't see any mention of the procedure actually being formally revoked on this book that hasn't been updated in 50 years. Where she think there's a patch? They would have patched the book?
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that although it may be antiquated and largely forgotten, it isn't yet extinct. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? A summation examination, our last possible option. Do we assert our right to carry it out, or admit defeat? We'll assert our right. The defense wishes to assert its right to a summation examination, my lord.
Objection! London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. We have a duty to the world to exemplify the very highest standards of judicial procedure.
Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should remain barred. But if it's our right to party. I believe it could prove vital in this trial. The defense's petition is perfectly valid. The court will proceed with the summation examination. This is madness. Foreman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready? Well, I'm not. There was no mention of this in the letter I received, so you see, so. All members of the jury will be asked to explain on what grounds they have reached their decision. On what grounds? You must all justify your decisions and explain why you believe the defendant to be guilty. Well, my lord, you're rather putting us on the spot. This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before. Oh, really? Hold all this justifying like? Seems to have thrown the jurors off. It seems none of them have experienced this before. All right then, the summation examination. A defense procedure no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Well, just maybe. It might be the opportunity we've been looking for to turn this trial around. So be it then. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant, Magnus McGilded, guilty of this most serious crime.